What would you do if someone killed your family member? Would you take revenge? And if you did, would you take on one man? Would you be able to take on 3 men? Hell, would you be able to take on a whole army? When his little brother was killed in action, this man signed the dotted line with Uncle Sam to be sent overseas, to where he only killed around 200 Chinese soldiers, saved 68 of his own men, earned himself the Medal of Honor, and it only took him about an hour. A Korean War John Wick, a man motivated by vengeance. Ron Rosser.
Yoo-hoo! I'll make you famous.
Born to John Rosser and Edith Mary Rife, Ron Rosser was the eldest of 17 children, growing up in Crooksville, Ohio, in a 6-bedroom house on Washington Street. As the family's oldest boy, he said he never had time for hobbies since he helped take care of his younger siblings. But he learned quick, he was a fighter.
I'm the oldest son of 17 children, and if you bothered one of my brothers, I cleaned your clock, and if you bothered one of my sisters, you better leave town. And I grew up like that.
To help support his family, Rosser joined the Army in 1946 at the age of 17. When he returned to civilian life, he followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a coal miner. However, this wouldn't be a permanent career change. Rosser's little brother Gary was killed by a booby-trapped claymore in the early days of the Korean War. So he re-enlisted in 1951 as a way of getting revenge.
But I made up my mind that you can't kill my brother and get away with it. So I went over there with kind of vengeance is mine kind of attitude.
Initially, the Army tried to send him back to Japan, but he wasn't going to have none of that crap. He wanted blood. He demanded to go to Korea. And once he was there, he was sent to a heavy mortar team attached to the 2nd Division. There he witnessed true poverty for the first time, seeing kids on the brink of death due to starvation. It tugged at his heartstrings. Remember, the man was from a big family, so a situation like this, it hit him hard. And I'll tell you a story after I tell you about the big story that'll give you an idea of just who Ron Rosser was. He was a man that had a big heart for kids, but I'll get to that part. After reacclimating to military life, Rosser was sent to the front lines, where he served as a forward observer, which is pretty much the eyes and ears for the artillery. It was January 12, 1952. Rosser was in a region known as the Iron Triangle. His company was sent there to raid a Chinese-held mountaintop and destroy its winter outposts. It was 20 below zero, and there was about a foot of hard snow on the ground. Their success was going to be damn near impossible, but if they could pull this off, it would be a crushing blow to the enemy. However, their daytime sneak attack didn't work. At the bottom of the hill looking up, they were stopped by artillery and gunfire. The Chinese had an elaborate network of trenches that covered the hill, and they weren't afraid to use them. Look, I don't know what happened. All I know is I was recording the other day, my microphone cut off, I finished the whole video, I was pissed. But hey, adapt, improvise, overcome. We make our way. I downloaded a program. We're running it. I think it's going to sound better, but you tell me in the comments. Either way, back to the video. Rosser took one look at the officer and knew he wouldn't be able to get the job done. The captain put down his radio and had this real look of hopelessness when he looked up at the mountain. So naturally, Rosser volunteered to organize the remaining men and lead a charge.
I'll take it before you, Captain. And he said, how you going to do it? I said, I'm going straight ahead shooting, Captain. I'll take you men with me. So we jumped up, started shooting, and went straight into him.
Whether it was out of fear or giving medical assistance to some of the wounded, a lot of the men didn't follow Rosser. Either way, by the time he was halfway up to the Chinese position, he found out he was alone.
You went to a lot of trouble to get here. Let's give it a go. I let out a war whoop like a wild Apache Indian and jumped in the trench with them.
9 Chinese soldiers were in the bunker, but to Ron Rosser, that didn't matter. He was so close to them that he could actually stick the barrel of his rifle in the first one's ear and pull the trigger. However, he couldn't look at the Chinese chow mein he just made. Before the body of the first one even hit the ground, another one of them was behind him. So without thinking, Ron Rosser swung around and shot him in the neck. He fell, but he wasn't out of the fight. Even with the lead in his chest, he grabbed Ron by the leg. But that didn't stop the one-man wrecking crew. Ron kicked him off and shot him in the chest. Again. This time, it was in the heart. 2 down, 7 more to go. Spinning around, Rosser saw the other 7 Chinese soldiers raise their guns to shoot him. The Papashal's hosed rounds whizzing right by Rosser's face. But before they could find their target, he closed the distance, turning his assault into hand-to-hand combat. Rosser had 30 rounds in his magazine, but they were so close, he couldn't shoot him. So he did the next best thing. He just beat him, beating 2 of them to death with his rifle. Then he turned the gun around, sinking the butt of the rifle deep in one guy's head. When Ron finally got to the end of the trench, there were 2 more soldiers, one wounded and one still in the fight. After presumably seeing 5 of their buddies get beat to death, the 2 men made a solid life choice. Nope the fuck out of there. Running straight into a machine gun bunker. Not knowing if it was just 2 men in there or a much larger fortified force, Rosser knew he couldn't just run in and blindly gun everybody down like he had just done in the trench. So a thought clicked through his mind. He remembered the white phosphorus grenade that he'd stuffed into his jacket right before the assault. For those of you that don't know what white phosphorus is, it's pretty much napalm in a can. He stuck his hand down the pocket of his frozen coat, retrieving the grenade and pulling the pin, then rolling it into the door of the bunker.
I fought my way over to a big old bunker, a machine gun bunker, and I'd done flanked the thing so he couldn't shoot me. And I had one white phosphorus hand grenade, so I crawled up on top of the bunker and I kicked the spoon and rolled it in the back door.
On top of the bunker, Rosser watched as they came out the door. So, I shot them in the head point blank. I put them out of their misery. I should have let them burn. I let the rest of them burn. They were screaming, but then there was no screaming. The screaming stopped. I don't know how to explain it any better than this, but this dude truly meets the definition of nostalgia, not PTSD.
Close combat never bothered me like it did a lot of people.
After clearing the bunker, Rosser called for his men who weren't injured to join him in his new trench. However, it was at that time he looked up at the top of the hill and saw about another 35 soldiers running toward his position. He knew he was up shit creek, again. Knowing that if he retreated, he would just probably catch hot lead to the back. However, he also knew that if he stayed, the enemy would probably just flank him and take him out with a grenade. His only real option, take on the problem head on, running straight into the oncoming enemy, firing shot for shot with every step he took. One of them lowered his papashal and started returning fire, shooting point blank at the American GI. Rosser could feel bullets tugging at his clothes, but miraculously, he never got hit. He couldn't believe he was still running, and neither could the Chinese soldiers. Seeing the bulletproof American running at him unfazed, the Chinese soldier understandably shit his pants, turned and ran. He ran straight into the guy behind him. As the one tried to claw around the other, all at once a whole bunch of them turned and started running away from the American GI Rosser.
Run! It's Godzilla!
Seeing his chance to pop a few melons, Rosser stopped running and started shooting. The Chinese soldiers made their break for a bunker, and seeing their destination, Rosser ran towards that bunker to cut them off. Beating them to the punch, Rosser was able to cut off their escape, shooting 3 of them before they could enter their concrete fortress. By this point, Rosser was out of ammunition, so he went back down the hill to stock up before going back up the hill. After reloading, Rosser charged the hill again, taking out more Chinese soldiers in the trench he had just cleared. On his way to another enemy bunker, he got hit by a grenade, but he was able to keep going and take down more soldiers as he went. Rosser even managed to deflect a grenade that was tossed at him while he was in the trench. It hit him in the hip, dropped down to his foot. Unable to kick it away, he dove across one of the soldiers he had just killed. Just as he landed on the ground, the grenade let off a deafening blast. Unfazed, Rosser immediately got up and started running. Just a trip and fall. He thought one of the dead men had grabbed his legs, so Rosser promptly stood up, delivering 6 rounds to the dead man's belly. Realizing he had tripped and wasn't some last act of defiance, Rosser took off to storm the next trench. He took out more of the enemy, returned for more ammunition, then went back up the hill a 3rd time. Rosser eventually made it back down the hill, where he warned the captain they needed to get the fuck out of there. They needed to withdraw now. Despite being wounded, Rosser organized his platoon to carry back the dead and wounded to safety. He made several trips across open terrain that was still under fire to pull back men injured more seriously than he was. Amazingly, Rosser fought for an hour before finally organizing the retreat, getting the American dead and wounded back down the hill, trying to protect the men that he was responsible for. Rosser feared that if he didn't attack, the Chinese troops would come down the hill and kill the wounded. According to Rosser's Medal of Honor citation, during the course of the firefight, he single-handedly killed at least 13 of the enemy. But if you ask Ron Rosser, he got that many in the first trench. He said he was up on top of the mountain by himself, taking on sometimes as many as 200 soldiers. They were all over me, jumping on my back, grabbing my leg. Hell, I was beating them off with my rifle. Of the 170 men who were there that day, only 68 returned. 90 of them were killed, and 12 more of them are listed as MIA. But if it wasn't for Ron Rosser's actions that day, the other 68 of them, including Ron, might have went MIA or KIA. Now, do you remember at the start of the story, I told you that Ron Rosser really liked kids? Well, he was actually a really good person. He was more than just a war hero. There was a young Korean kid who lived with his unit that served as an interpreter and kind of handyman. I'm about to fuck up his name really, really bad, but his name was Yi Tao Gu. But I'm just going to call him Yi. Rosser met this kid one day on his way to get chow. The mess sergeant was throwing rocks at him to get him out of there. Remember, Rosser had a soft spot for kids and didn't like to see someone throwing rocks at one. So Rosser went over there and started talking to the kid. He could only speak a little bit of Korean, and the kid could only speak a little bit of English, yet somehow the two managed to communicate. Yi told him that his parents were landowners, but his mother and father stood up to the government, and they were shot. They paid the price of lead for their actions. He was hiding in the rice paddies and got to witness the whole thing. Yi said how he hadn't eaten a real meal in a long time, sufficing off scraps and garbage. He was only about 13 or 14 years old when he met the bulletproof American GI. Rosser asked him one thing: "How would you like to stay with us?" So he took the kid to the mess tent. There he told the rock-chucking sergeant to get the kid something to eat. The mess sergeant said, "Get that damn kid out of here." To which Rosser replied, "Just give him some scraps of food, whatever you can laying around." Then the sergeant said something he should have never said. He replied, "I said get him out of here." Well, Ron was fresh off the mountain that earned him the Medal of Honor. The same mountain that saw him shove a gun in someone's ear, pull the trigger, then immediately go off and beat multiple other people to death. Ron threw back the bolt of his rifle, stuck it in the mess sergeant's ear, and said, "You'll feed him or I'll blow your damn brains out right here, right now." Old habits never die. The sergeant knew he meant it too. Rosser would have shot him right there because he already hated him for throwing rocks at the kid. Needless to say, he started giving the kid some food. From that day on, Yi traveled with the company wherever it went. He was still in the company when Ron left it to return home. He could have killed 100 men and never batted an eye, but he could never stand to watch an American soldier throw rocks at a kid. That man really loved kids. With his entire family in attendance, on June 27, 1952, Rosser was presented with the Medal of Honor given to him by President Harry S. Truman. After the war, Rosser went on to earn a college degree and worked several civilian jobs after the Army. He eventually established 2 scholarship programs and named them in honor of his fallen brothers. He met with school children and soldiers throughout his life and talked about his experiences in war. I would love to hear what the fuck he had to say to children about his experiences in war. Remember, this is the man that made Chinese chow mein out of someone's brain. Rosser said over time his desire for revenge faded. Instead of thinking about the men he killed, he preferred to think about the soldiers he saved. He was married 4 times and had a daughter, Pam, with his second wife. However, his body did what the Chinese couldn't. He was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was at his daughter's house in Bumpus Mills, Tennessee, when he died after a fall on August 22, 2020, at the ripe age of 90 years old. If you enjoyed my video on the Korean War's John Wick, then please leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's the easiest way to help support my channel, plus your engagement is a tribute to the algorithm gods, and those gods help put my channel on the map. So until next time, see you beautiful bastards in the next video.
Yoo-hoo! I'll make you famous.